everyone, and welcome to our very first episode of So You Want to Be a Millionaire. I'm your co-host, Sharla Brown, joined with the one and only Jacquie Somerville. How are you today, Jacquie?
Hey, Sharla, I'm doing great. It's good to be with you and with everybody today. Hi, everyone.
Absolutely. And our new show, So You Want to Be a Millionaire. We're working with women, teaching women how to look like a million, feel like a million, impact millions, and make millions of dollars. We're going to share all of our advice and all of our tips on this show. Are we not, Jacquie?
Yes, we are. We love that word millions. Millions, millions. We love feeling like a million, looking like a million, and of course, impacting millions. And we really want to open up your hearts and your minds to millions and millions of dollars, to the possibility that there is for you within this millionaire lifestyle, feeling like a million, looking, impacting, and making millions.
Absolutely. And everybody wants that millionaire lifestyle. And what does that look like for you? Those are the things that we're going to be exploring in every single episode. And if you have a topic that you want us to talk about in one of our upcoming episodes, make sure you throw it in the comments. There's nothing that we won't talk about, whether that's spirituality, whether that's sex, whether that's money, whether that's business. You know, whatever it is that you want to talk about, well, there's no topic that's off limits for Jacquie and I.
Yeah, there's one thing that Sharla and I know, and that is whatever we decide and whatever we truly want, there is always a way. And there's a way to do it under grace in a perfect way. And to not force it, but to just have whatever you truly desire and to feel great. And so we do talk about every single subject. And we're dying to talk to you about all of those things and hear what you want from us.
Absolutely. So today, for our first episode, we thought we'd share with you our millionaire journey, what that's looked like for each of us. You can get to know us a little bit better. And if there's questions that you have about ourselves, about our lives, feel free to throw those in the comments in the chat, and we'll definitely, address those for sure. So we're going to start with us as little girls. Jacquie, what kind of a little girl were you?
I was an adventurous, feisty little girl, Sharla, and I was obsessed with horses, and I was very blessed from about the age of 8 to have my own pony. And one of my favorite things was to ride my horse by myself, just with the animals, and go into my dream world. I was always a big dreamer. And that's the thing that really defines my young life. Was that I was feisty, I was independent, I was a dreamer, and I felt very connected to the divine. I don't know, it was something innate in me that I just felt so connected that I felt like whatever I dreamt about and imagined, that would be my truth, that would become true at some point in my life. And I really felt that incredible connection. And it's amazing how sometimes that gets societal kind of noise and everything, that gets kind of drained out of us over time. But it's been such a wonderful thing to get back to that as a young adult and as an even older adult, to remember that beautiful connection and to remember the key is to dream. So I would say that's probably how I would describe what I was like as a young girl.
Absolutely.
What about you?
I was a bossy little girl. Or so my mom used to always tell me that. You're too bossy, you're too bossy. The way I look at it is that I was crystal clear as to what I wanted, and I was an excellent communicator at, asking for it. And those are the things that we teach, It's not about being bossy. It's the fact that I was a born leader. And for so many women that's watching, you're a born leader too. So I had a lot of big goals and dreams as a little girl. I knew what I wanted to do, and I was definitely born to be an entrepreneur for as long as I remember. I remember being in about grade 6 when I wanted to start my own ice cream stand. I had it all planned in terms of this little, shack or building that, would be in my yard and that people could stop by. But I knew I had a problem right from the get-go when the only people who drove down the country road I lived were people who lived down that road, which was only about a handful of people. So I knew I wasn't going to have a massively successful business. That location was a big problem for me. And that's just how my mind worked from a little girl. You know, I loved sales. I think we all had experiences in school where you had fundraising that you needed to do. Well, I was that top salesperson in chocolate bars or knickknacks or doodads or whatever we were selling to raise funds for whatever causes that we were doing at school. That was just me. And so I had a passion for business right from a young age, and a lot of big goals and dreams for my life. I grew up a small country kid, but I knew there was a big world out there. And I think, you know, that might be your story too, if you're watching, is that you always had big goals and dreams for your life. But sometimes somewhere along the way, you know, we lose sight of those big goals and dreams. And that's one of the things Jackie and I are going to talk to you about, you know, in coming episodes is, you know, the power of dreaming big and having big goals and dreams for your life. So, you know, definitely share with us in the comments some of the big goals and dreams that you had as a little girl, or what kind of a little girl were you? So, Jackie, tell me about some of those as you were growing up, some of the big goals and dreams that you had that took you across the ocean.
Yeah, Charlotte, you know, I love what you say about the little girl that you were, because those are the very things that you've helped me so much, and that I know you help a lot of our clients with. That audacity to ask, that clarity, that, you know, that born entrepreneurship. I didn't have that. I definitely was a dreamer. But the entrepreneurial thing was kind of a bit of an enigma to me, in that I was raised with this mantra that, my darling, your dreams are so big, you're going to have to marry a rich man. And so I know there's probably also some women who are joining us on this broadcast who were raised with a similar mantra or an expectation for their life, that they have become aware over time that really that's not what lights them up, that they really want to be independently wealthy, have ultimate freedom. And we know that financial freedom is truly the key to other freedoms. And so anyway, that was the thing, that while I was this big dreamer who dreamt about having my own horse farm, having a thoroughbred horse farm, and I never ever dreamt of having a husband or children, even though that was the narrative for me. That wasn't in my own personal dreams. The dream was that I saw myself kind of rolling up this long driveway lined with these, you know, poplar trees and white fences with beautiful thoroughbreds like galloping around these green fields. And I'd be driving like my Rolls Royce up to my beautiful home, and the dogs would all run out. And this was what I thought about. And I also dreamt that I was going to be overseas. You know, I grew up a 7th generation South African on a farm, on a sugar farm at the base of the African continent. And I had no access to passport from any other country in the world. But for some reason, even though the horse farm seemed to me like it was in South Africa, I still felt that my life was going to be somewhere else. And I was particularly obsessed with America. And so that was some of my dreams growing up. It was this horse farm. It was this independently wealthy woman. And then it was also this desire to live a bigger life, to live overseas, to live a glamorous life, and to experience so much more than what I saw in my own little world. So that's to, I guess, the answer to the question. How about you? Like, what was, I mean, I know you dreamt of being an entrepreneur, and you were, like, that was who you were. But what were some of the things that you dreamt of?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's the thing is, you know, there's pros and cons of growing up in a small town, a country kid, you know, is that you have these big goals and dreams, but you don't really know what exists out there. You know, the place where I went to school, elementary and high school, only had about less than 1,000 people in the entire town. And I lived 20 miles from that town. So, you know, I wasn't exposed to a lot. So when I was in high school, I took my, I took a placement, a co-op placement at the elementary school. And I just assumed that, well, this is what I did for my placement. I should be working with kids and children. And, you're probably cracking up a little bit because I do not have any kids or children to this day. And not that I don't love them. I have beautiful nieces and nephews. I sponsor a lot of girls to go to school. I mentor a lot of girls. But, that wasn't what I was supposed to do in terms of, my calling in life. And it wasn't taught, especially when I grew up, is that women weren't entrepreneurs. That was more of a man's job, so to speak. And so when I went to school and studied business, it was assumed that you'd work for somebody else, and I actually started off in youth and child work. I got into that program. I was there for a month. Remember calling my dad crying, saying like, this is not the program for me. And my dad was he's a loving man, very caring man, definitely my biggest hero in my life. But he's very matter of fact. He's like, you figure out what you're doing by Friday or you're coming home. I had moved to Thunder Bay, to be going to college. And so it was Tuesday. I had 3 days to figure out what I was going to do for the rest of my life. And I remember taking an aptitude test. And they said, Sharla, you're so business minded. We think you do really well in our business program. And so I switched programs over to business and I never looked back. I graduated from international business and international business management. I was top of my class and it really was my passion. And the thing is that's where I really learned to follow those divine downloads, is that when something doesn't feel right, that even when you make a big commitment, even to school, where a lot of people do that, they enroll into college, university, spend thousands of dollars and realize that, hey, this isn't for me, but they stick it out just because they feel that's what they're supposed to do, or somebody else's expectations of you, as opposed to really following your own path. And I always am so thankful that I have the courage to do that. And that, even if it meant upsetting my parents in terms of, well, what is she doing? What is she thinking? That they always supported me in that. And I'm really lucky and blessed. And not everybody has that. I remember that one of my dad's cousins said to my dad one time, why are you helping, Sharla go to school? She's always only going to wind up pregnant and back home anyway, working at the grocery store or whatever the case might be. And my dad said, oh, no, not my Sharla. No, not my Sharla. My dad always knew I was different. And what I loved about my dad is that he always instilled in myself and my brother that you can do anything you put your mind to. Whatever goals and dreams you have, that you can achieve that. Now, I know not everybody has that in a parent. And I was blessed to have that. And I always say, find that person for you, whoever that is that can support and encourage you, a mentor, a coach, whatever that might be, so that you're supported and encouraged in that journey. So I was blessed that way to be able to have my dad's support, that even though he didn't always understand it, he was always there for me, encouraged me along the way. But he did believe that, you get a good job working for someone else. You bring your lunch kit and you sit in your air-conditioned office. And that's what he wanted for, my brother and myself, because he did live a life of self-employment. He worked really hard, to achieve the level of success that he achieved. But it wasn't necessarily something that he encouraged either of us to do. And so it was interesting to see, because I did, fall into that good government job. And it was a struggle for me to be able to leave it in terms of people pleasing, in terms of, doing it for somebody else. And I think that's something we see very often, hey, Jackie, when it comes to, living the life of our dreams and doing it for ourselves as opposed to what other people think of us.
Yeah, exactly. It's, the general narrative of society is very deep and very ingrained in safety. And so many, and I'm sure so many of you relate to this, we are raised with that, for the most part, with that thing of go and get a good job, a safe job, secure job. Always have a plan B, always have something to fall back on. And so, people's desires are squashed. Somebody wants to be a writer, they want to be an actor, they want to do, and the general way that most of us are raised is, oh, that's fine and dandy, my darling, but make sure you got something to fall back on. And so that's so ingrained in us that we are very fearful in general of breaking away from that and flying off as an entrepreneur and taking that big risk, because it is scary. But it just made me think of this meme that I saw recently of the two lions next to one another, and one is in a cage and safe and secure, and the other one is free on the sort of savannah. And the look of despair and misery and no will to live on the lion that's in the cage, as opposed to the lion that's open on the savannah, that's actually could be hunted, could be killed by something. An old younger lion would kill it for its troop, or its pride or whatever. There's so many risks for that one that's free. And yet the look on these lions, the way that their body, their energy was so radically different. And that's like that for us. We cling to safety and we cling to security behind those bars. And we never truly do what we're supposed to do, which is to run free. In other words, I use that as a metaphor for using our own gifts and talents, doing what lights us up and taking that risk. And I think it really is what we want to do is we want to encourage you guys that there's this calling in your heart to do something different to what you're doing right now, we're just saying don't ignore it. And we're here to tell you not to be afraid. Yeah, it's going to take some courage. You're probably going to take a few knocks, but you are going to feel free and you're going to feel so happy. And the other thing is you're going to feel alive. And I don't know about you, but I didn't come to earth to not feel alive. So we're going to give you all the courage and all the support you need to break free and do whatever it is that's on your heart to do. And, Sharla, I loved your story about your dad. I feel like even though I haven't met him, I feel like I love him so much. And one of the things that really struck me was when you said my dad was very matter of fact. And all I could think of was, that's where she gets it from. It's one of the things I really love about you.
The apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
I love that matter of factness. It's part of what you help the rest of us with. I think that directness and so on is so brilliant in a female mentor. So your dad did really well by you.
Absolutely. And I always tell people, your life's always calling you. You always have that divine calling on your life. And even though I was happy in life, I was working for the government, climbing the corporate ladder, because that's what I felt I was supposed to do. I was working on my designation to be an accountant. I was going back to university. Government was paying for that. So I thought I had it made in the shade. But, your dreams are always calling you. Go back to when you were a little girl. That entrepreneurship that was always in my blood. And what is it for you? Because, I always say, God is always throwing pebbles at you. Be careful, because God will throw bricks, and he might even roll you over with a boulder. And I always say, I became an entrepreneur by accident. Literally, I was rear-ended by a Dodge Caravan. My life changed in a split second. And that's what got me on my journey of entrepreneurship, because I was climbing this corporate ladder. I was doing everything that, I was supposed to do, or what I felt I was supposed to do, that my parents were proud of me, that I had this great government job. I had the pension, I had the benefits, I had the vacation time, but I didn't love what I did. I did what I felt like I was supposed to do. And then one day, in a split second, my whole life changed, where I was in a major car accident. And I no longer could do that job. I couldn't sit for long periods of time. And I started to explore, because I had all the responsibilities still and not the paycheck. So I had just bought a house, I had a mortgage and, a vehicle and all that kind of stuff. And I thought, now what am I going to do? I can't do my job anymore. God's always pointing you in the right direction. If you don't figure it out yourself, he's going to find a way to put you on that path. and I started my very first business. Something I could do when I felt good, how I could do it, how I wanted to do it, all that kind of stuff. I started my first business when I was around 21, 22 years old. There was no turning back. If you know that path you're supposed to be on, pay attention to the pebbles. Really listen when the bricks come, and do not wait for a boulder, because that's what got me on this path of entrepreneurship. And I know you have a story as well, Jackie, in terms of that calling as to, something bigger for your own life and where that was pulling you, not just to, follow your dreams, but uproot your whole entire life and go to a whole new place. So share with our audience, your journey of, following those big goals and dreams.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I had this desire to live in America. And here's the thing: is that we've talked about this, the importance, and how both Sharla and I had these dreams, that dreaming is so important. But it's not only that, it's also having the audacity to take the opportunities that show up, even if they don't seem very direct or very clear or very easy, right? And so I got this opportunity when I finished university. I studied agriculture, so I am a farmer by profession. I studied agriculture in South Africa, and when I finished my degree, I did what a lot of South Africans do, or certainly at the time, and that was to want to go traveling. And for my 21st birthday, my parents gave each of us kids some money. And we got to choose. And I decided that I was going to have a party with some of the money, and I was going to travel, go on a little trip to Europe, just a short trip, because that's what I could afford. One of those 20 countries in 21 days, kind of trip. But interestingly enough, when we dream about something as much as I dreamt about America and living overseas, this is when the divine is listening all the time. And this is when universal forces are busy lining up that we're unaware of. And so little did I know that while I was thinking all I could do was go to Europe with a few grand, what was happening was the divine had heard me thinking about America. And I was talking about the fact that I loved America, but I was going to Europe one day with one of my classmates at university. And she said to me, well, if you want to go to America, she said, why don't you just get a job as a nanny there? And I was like, a nanny? Let's call her right now. And then you can go to America. You can work, you can earn money, and you can spend a whole bunch of time there, not just 3 weeks touring around. And so we called up this family. And right there on the phone, because of the connection, they said, you're hired. So I didn't go to Europe. I took that money I was going to spend to buy my ticket to America. And that's all I needed was the money for the ticket, because my accommodation was paid for. I got pocket money working for this family. And I ended up spending 1.5 years in this country that I had dreamt about. And that love for this country was solidified in that time. But I still went back to South Africa for 4.5 years, because divine timing is a very real thing. And God had a different plan to what I thought. And I didn't even know at that point that I was going to end up living in America. I was just following the opportunities that showed up, because that's what happens. God puts these amazing opportunities in front of us. We have to have the audacity to show up and take them, even if they don't seem direct or exact. And so one thing led to another. And 4 years later, I'm still hung up on living in America, hung up on it. And my dad comes to me and he says, I've heard about a lawyer getting people into Canada. It's very similar and it's right next door. He goes, if you want, to go and see this lawyer, we'll sort of lend you the money and you can pay us back when you've settled and got a job. And what's more, you can sponsor your whole family if we need it. And so that's how I ended up then going to Canada and spending 20 years in Canada. How blessed am I? If I had done it my way, I would have missed out on becoming a Canadian citizen, one of the proudest things looking back that I've ever achieved in my life, and spending 20 years in that extraordinary country. God's plan was better than the plan I could have ever imagined. Needless to say, I now live on the beach in Los Angeles. So it's really extraordinary how that dream came true. And so that is the long answer to your question, because it is a very interesting way, the way God took my dream and lined up the universe for me in ways I could never have imagined. My job was to have the audacity to say yes.
Absolutely, Jackie. I love that story so much. And it just makes me think about, taking that leap of faith, and that how many times we're called to do that and we choose fear over faith in our life. It's like the old, the devil is better than the devil don't, and people get scared, and you get so used to, this life of struggle and mediocrity, as opposed to we forget those big goals and dreams, and taking those chances to live the most exciting life, the most extraordinary life, and a life of adventure, this life that God is calling us to. And, even though I was living this, what I felt was the best of both worlds, I still had my government job. I was working it part-time. I had this business, and God kept showing me that I was meant to be an entrepreneur. I remember I started in direct sales. I was selling Christmas ornaments, knickknacks, doodads, all kinds of stuff. And that first year, I was the 7th highest salesperson in North America. They sent me on an all expenses paid trip to China. It was right up my alley. I loved travel. I loved cultures. I loved sales. I loved business. I was so happy, And I had various businesses over the years. I then went into manufacturing, having my own, bath and body company, creating candles and bath and body products. And then I went on to the health and wellness industry, helping people with their health and fitness goals, opening a 4,000 square foot gym and health spa. I had so many businesses over the years. But I was still playing safe in the sand with the toe in the water, as I always say, because I had my safe, secure job, my safety net, and then I always had my side hustle, which was probably a little more than a side hustle at most times, I was working and, also having a massively successful business or businesses at the same time. And I loved it, I had the best of both worlds. Can't say I always loved my government job. I mean, I worked for the federal government in the tax department. I'm a social person, but, people don't look forward to your calls from the tax department. There's not a lot of hugs. There's not a lot of thank you cards, none of that kind of stuff. You're always calling people with bad news. Either they're owing money, they owe you money, they're going to owe money. That was kind of the conversation. And I did that job. And then there was just a day where, I had to take that leap of faith that, God put that calling on my life. And there is that day for all of us where we have this calling, these nudges, the pebbles that keep getting thrown. But it was a powerful day for me. And I tell this story often, that it was a day in church for me, that I was listening to the pastor talking about living a life of adventure. And I sat there and I listened, and he's a great storyteller. He was talking about how when he was a little guy, his parents used to take him to the beach, and he had a really big family. All his brothers and sisters were older. They were playing in the water, but he was too little. So he's playing in the sand with his sand, shovel and sand tools and all that kind of stuff. And his dad scoops him up one day and he says, "Hey, Joel, are you ready for an adventure?" He had no idea where his dad was taking him or what he was doing, but his dad starts walking into the ocean and the waves start rolling in, and he says, "Hey, Joel, are you ready? Are you ready?" And Joel's like, "What's going on?" His dad starts throwing him over the waves, and he would catch him, and he'd throw him over another wave, and he would catch him. And all of a sudden there's a lull in the wave. And his dad says to Joel, "So what'd you think, Joel?" He says, "Dad, it's so much better than the sand." It was such a powerful moment for me. Because in a room filled with about 1,000 people, the whole room went quiet, and he may as well have just been talking to me. Because I realized I spent my whole life playing safe in the sand, with the toe in the water, but that God was calling me out to the ocean. And all I heard was, "It's time to go." And I heard it so loud and clear. And I thought, geez, go where? But I knew that it meant to leave my job. Here I was, 37 years old. I already created $1 million business. But I was still scared. I was still playing safe in the sand. Definitely trying to appease others. My parents were always so proud that I worked for the government, that I had this safe job. But I knew that God was calling me into the ocean, where my feet could no longer touch the ground, and that he was calling me for something more. And we all have that moment in our life where we can take that leap of faith and trust that we're smart enough, that we're good enough, that everything that we need to be massively successful is already in us. That we just need to trust that we need to believe in that, believe in ourselves and believe in something so much bigger than us, to do what we're called on this earth to do, whatever that looks like for you. For me, that was leaving my job, because 4 months later, I'd find myself in the Amazon rainforest, where I got the greatest vision for my life: to start One Woman, to empower women globally, to bring women together for the greater good of all women in this world. That I now run an organization that empowers almost 500,000 women globally. I trusted it. I listened. I paid attention, and I acted upon it. What is that for you? What is it that God's trying to get your attention? What are you being called to do? What is the decision you need to make? You know, I did have that safe job for a long time. And there was just that day that came where I knew that it was time to go. And you are successful. You have all the tools you need. Jim Carrey always says in a video I play at every Fearless Women's Summit is that you can fail at what you don't want. So why not take a chance at doing what you love? You know, we have but this one but precious life. I often wonder, you know, what if I would have just chose the safe path? I wouldn't have experienced all the things that I've experienced in these last 6 or 7 years of taking that leap of faith. That's what we help women do, is figure out what that next right step is for you, to be able to trust in that divine guidance, to develop that belief in yourself, to live the life of your dreams. So that was the story I wanted to share next, Jackie.
Beautiful story, Sharla. I love those stories. So amazing. And you know, it also, just hearing you tell the story reminds me so much of what we talk about so much, which is divine timing. That the benefits and the things that you got out of working for the government for 20 years were really incredibly beneficial. And one of the things that you helped me so much with, and I know our clients too, is the thing of having a thick skin, not taking things personally. And you really got good at that through that job as well. And so it really, when you look back on all of the things in our lives, that they've really served us to this point, and you realize the divine timing of everything when we are willing to trust and follow those things that happen and those voices. And the other thing is how clear the voice was for you in the church that day. And you know, having the audacity to say, well, I don't really know where that means I should go, but clearly it means I should go, and I'm trusting that, and I believe it's true. And you know, it's really just amazing when you look back and you see the perfection and how everything worked out in the end, right? As long as we have the big dreams, we have the audacity to follow what shows up, and then we have faith while we do that. And then, of course, the fourth piece of that is to get guidance, to get help. So we're not stumbling, making the mistakes that others have already made before us. Why should we when there's help out there, right? We believe in the power of coaches and in the power of mentorship, and how much money we save when we have coaches and mentors. Because, man, you can make a lot of expensive mistakes on the journey to entrepreneurship. And if you've got somebody who's already done that for you and can help you avoid them, it's worth its weight in gold.
Absolutely. And it's never too late. You know, a lot of women that we work with say, well, you know, it's too late. I missed my opportunity. You know, I'm this age now, or whatever the case might be. And it's like, that is not true. Like, none of it is true. You know, some people have asked me, you know, do you wish you would have left earlier? And it's like, no, you know, everything that's ever happened to you all that's happened, the good, the bad, and most definitely the ugly, has prepared you for what's next. It's preparing you for what's next. You know, you're never a moment too late. It's just not true. It's all in divine timing. I left exactly when I was supposed to leave. And I'm so thankful for every moment, every experience, everything that has happened, because I can go back from a little girl right up to today and see exactly how God laid the pieces of the puzzle together to be able to create this extraordinary life. And it's like we're all just following those crumbs and paying attention to what's next. And, lots of times we're trying to figure out how that's going to happen for us. And that's one of the things we teach is that, you're not to figure out the how. That is none of your business. God and the universe has ways and means that we could never even imagine. How everything lined up and happened after the day I left, to like winding up in that Amazon rainforest, making that decision, putting on Fearless Women's Summits, meeting incredible women like Jackie Somerville along the way, turning this into what it is today. I never could have imagined any of that stuff for my life, and I'm a pretty big dreamer, but it's just the fact of figuring out what's the first right step, what's the next right step. So let's talk a little bit about that, Jackie, in terms of, what was it that got you onto your, entrepreneurial journey and getting into that side of things and starting to really discover your gifts and talents and wanting to share those?
Yes. So of course, like everything, it's a quite a detailed, sort of delicious, curvaceous story, because God has a sense of humor and very rarely takes us in a straight line, right? And that's what makes life so interesting and so adventurous. As we were saying earlier, adventure is a big thing. And so I ended up living as this new immigrant in Canada, finding myself ultimately in a dead-end job, a dying relationship, living paycheck to paycheck in a small little rental apartment, and struggling financially, and wondering how that happened, first of all, and really not having a clue how to change it. So I thought, what has happened? Because this is not the life I signed up for. That little girl on that pony did not dream about this life. So something's got horribly wrong, and I need to figure this stuff out. And the first thing I realized was that I had stopped dreaming. And that was a huge realization. I thought, you have bought into all of this negative nonsense that gets taught to you about being logical and being reasonable and fitting your life into a small little box. And you bought into all of that. And here you are working for a corporation, struggling financially, getting into credit card debt. I mean, all of that stuff. And I said, this is just so gross. Start dreaming again. And I was about 31 years old already at this time. Dream, 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 dream. What is it you want for your life, Jacqueline? Go back to that little girl. What do you want? And I got out my journal and I got super clear without limitations. I did not think about, oh, well, what is this going to cost? This is not possible. You're living paycheck to paycheck. I did not. God started speaking to me directly again, because I started opening up to that. And I was like, you know what? I want a farm. I want horses. Horses had been a part of my life my whole life. Suddenly I'm living in a little rental apartment in, like, what had happened to my life? Horses, yes. Dogs, yes. Animal philanthropy. I wanted to help save the animals. All of the things that were important to me. I wanted to be able to travel first class around the world whenever I wanted. I wanted clothes coming out the yin yang, the best clothes, the best fashion, the best purses, everything. All from Paris and Milan. I wanted all of that. And I was like, write it down, Jacqueline. I wanted a place in the sun, because I was living in Vancouver, and we all know that it can rain mercilessly there. And I wanted a place in the sun. And I wrote in brackets, I said for part of the year, and then I wrote in brackets, well, maybe all year round. And I wrote all of that down, and I got super clear. And I just thought, well, this is really exciting and really great. And I went back to that little girl who believed and who knew that whatever she imagined was going to come true. That was still innate in me, fortunately. And so I just let it go. And I thought, I know that's going to be my life now. I can relax knowing and trusting. And then what I did was I went about doing the best I could do with the resources I had in that moment. I could get healthy. I could get fit. I could get a better job. What could I do in that moment to be able to pay my rent so that I wasn't struggling in the moment? So I went ahead and did what was directly in front of me. God was showing up and saying, that's the dream, but you can do some things now. Go and do them. That's you. You need to show up. You need to show me that you and I are on this path together. You need to do your part. And so I did. I started to do my part, all the while knowing that my big dream was coming. And you know that when I was a little girl, I never dreamt of having a husband and children, that I dreamt of being an entrepreneur. But the being an entrepreneur thing was still so very far away from me. Even though I thought that these things that I'd written down were going to come from being an entrepreneur, writing a book, I did have this idea of writing a book always in the back of my mind. But God had a more direct approach for me to become a multimillionaire and to make that dream come true. And that came wrapped up with love as well. Because I had done all this work on myself and I was vibrating, we talk about the law of attraction. Sometimes it sounds a little woo-woo, but it's true. When you are in a state of being and you have usurped a certain way in your life, that's what you attract. And I had become very confident. I had become that woman that lived that life I wrote in my journal, even though I wasn't there yet financially. I had become her in my mind and in my imagination. So I walked as her. I was her. And because of that, I became a multimillionaire within a few weeks, or a few months actually, of writing all of that down. And that's a lot of what we teach and what we help women, is to get their mindset and their consciousness there before materially. Because once you do that, the material catches up. And it does so under grace in a perfect way with God's timing. And so that's a lot of what we teach, because this is not meant to be a struggle. You're not meant to kill yourself and work your fingers to the bone on your journey to looking, feeling, impacting, and making millions. And so it all unfolded so perfectly and so beautifully for me the first time around. And I became this multimillionaire and I lived this life of Riley, and everything I ever wanted, everything I wrote on that list came true, and then some. Everything. And I was standing one day looking out at my beautiful farm, and my horses were grazing down at the lake, and I was in my gazillion-dollar house that had been featured in magazines all over the world, and I had my other homes around the world, and I had everything. And I felt empty again in my life. It was so interesting. Empty. Why? Because there was that calling on my heart. That little girl who always wanted to be an independent entrepreneur, she was still there. She hadn't gone anywhere. And so I realized that I didn't have purpose and that I wasn't using my gifts and talents. And so even though I had everything materially, I wasn't using my gifts and talents, and that was eating me up. So I had to go on yet another journey of discovery. What was the next thing for me? And that led me to writing books, to ultimately writing a best-selling book, to starting my own business by starting a blog, and then starting to coach, studying personal development up the yin-yang, hiring coaches, all of the stuff that it took to get me to this point where I'm a successful entrepreneur, that I have a successful coaching business, that I'm the co-founder of 100 Most Powerful Women with one of the most extraordinary female entrepreneurs on this planet that I know. And how blessed am I that every single dream now has come true. I have to pinch myself. And so that is how I got to where I am right now, Sharla, in a nutshell. And so, yes. And so share with us some of the other, I know you've created so many extraordinary million-dollar businesses, but you've done it while helping so many women and kids. And the calling on your heart to impact millions is stronger than in most people that I've ever met. So maybe tell us a little about that too.
Absolutely. Well, that's the thing is that, what I've learned not only from my own life, but listening, and speaking with thousands of women right around the world is that they want to have not only businesses, but businesses that make a difference, that help others, that, change the world. And that's what we're really passionate about helping women do, is to be able to get their gifts out there, to be able to have massively successful businesses that, are not just financially successful, but make the impact that you want to make and be the change that you want to be in the world. And that's something that's always been on my heart is, for every business I've ever had, making a difference has always been the most important part of that, top of the list. I have one of those hearts that, most women do, to be able to help others, to be able to impact others. I know you'd mentioned for you, that was animal philanthropy, and to be able to, make a difference. For each of us, that could be something different. I always say at events, you don't have to look far out your own back door to see the need, whether that's helping, people who are hungry and homeless, whether that is, working with animals, whether that's environmental issues and, making our planet a better place, really looking at mentoring youth and the next generation, working with parents and helping people with that. We work with so many women that have different causes that's important for them. For me, it's been empowering every woman and girl in this world. And we do this, the same way right around the world is, helping women and girls to realize their big goals and dreams, because every woman and girl has one for their life. We work in developing countries, helping women start businesses, gaining employment skills, having access to education, helping little girls to be able to go to school so they can be whatever it is that they want to be when they grow up. Because I too was that little girl that had big goals and dreams. And every woman and girl should be able to realize that. So yes, that is my heart. That is my passion. It really is what One Woman is all about. It's what's blessed me, brought me right around the world to put on Fearless Women's Summits, right around the world, to do work with women and girls in various countries around the globe. Definitely has utilized my passion and purpose to be able to empower others to realize their goals and dreams. And, of course, I get to do it alongside of you with 100 Most Powerful Women. And that's the next thing I wanted to talk about was, how our paths collided, and that how God, works in such miraculous ways to not only give us the resources and the tools that we need to be successful, but also the people. Always pay attention to who's coming into your life, whether that's some random email, whether that's an event you show up to, whether that's somebody you're sitting by next in a plane. There are no coincidences. All this stuff is being lined up. They always say, when you have a big golden dream and you dare to ask for it, that all the universe conspires to make it happen. And I just always find it such a miracle, Jackie, that, as you're dreaming as a little girl in South Africa and I'm, a country kid in Canada, how one day God would magically align our paths to collide. And we all have these stories in our life, whether that was meeting your soulmate or meeting a business partner or meeting your best friend or whatever the case might be. So for Jackie and I, that happened at a Fearless Women's Summit. I decided to take off and do the events across Canada in 2018. I had a successful event management company. I'd been hired by a lot of famous people, Food Network stars, HGTV stars, dragons from Dragon's Den, sharks from Shark Tank, Hay House authors, you name it, to put on massively successful events. And it was in 2018 that I finally decided to put on my own events and to be able to create a platform for women to shine, maybe that weren't already famous and successful, but definitely had that ability to do that. And that's the platform I created, sold out events right across Canada. Speakers came from around the world to step onto that fearless stage and to share their own fearless story, their passion, their purpose. And what I know is that's contagious, that when a woman shares her fearless story, she gives another woman permission to do the same. How many women have went on to share their story and speak on fearless stages that once sat in the audience? Oh my gosh, it's hundreds. But it was an event in Montreal where I watched one woman step onto that stage and lit up that room like I'd never seen before. And that was Jackie. I sat there, it was just before lunch. She spoke right before the lunch break, and she shared her fearless story, and she had the women on the edges of their seats. And it was a mob after she spoke. Everybody surrounded her table. There wasn't a book left to be seen. She sold every single book she brought with her, and she had a really successful day. And I thought, wow, that's a woman, following her passion and purpose. Definitely super successful at what she does. And it took 2 hours before I finally got to Jackie's table, when the lineup finally cleared, that I wanted to just have the opportunity to tell her what a great job she did, and to congratulate her, thank her for being part of the day, and really engaging the audience. So I had a moment to have a conversation with Jackie. I said, wow, you must travel a lot and do these events and speak on, big stages around the world. And she said, actually, today was the first time I ever did this. And I'm like, what? No, there's no way. There is no way that you can move an audience like that. And to tell me that this is the first time you've shared that story and spoke like that, she goes, no, I'm serious. Was it, do you think it's good? Because this is what I'm passionate about. This is what I would love to do. How do I do more of it? Can I come and speak at more events? I said, you can speak at as many events as you want to, but oh, honey, you're your own show. Because she just, not only spoke, but entertained. It was spectacular. And so, a seed was really planted there, in terms of, as brief as that conversation was. We probably stood there for only 5 or 10 minutes, that I didn't know at the time. I knew afterwards, when Jackie reached out to me, just how powerful that conversation is. And maybe you've experienced one of those powerful conversations in your life, where it just turned into something magical, because Jackie went on to speak at many fearless events around the world. I helped her to put together her own one-woman show, where she engaged audiences, across Canada, putting on her show, shining her light, and sharing with others, being massively successful. But I always say, God's got such a great sense of humor, because we would travel between events, in a car, road tripping, eating beef jerky, having powerful conversations about our lives and the big goals and dreams and stuff we had. But that God really had a plan for us. And we traveled together and we did things together, but we really didn't have a business together. And it was when the pandemic hit, basically a year ago, that we started having these conversations about doing some coaching together, really empowering women that we knew, from the events, that had, the common struggle, that they were, so talented, so brilliant, so passionate about what they were doing, but they really struggled to monetize, their gifts and talents, to be able to have the life of their dreams, to reach that $1 million level, and that every woman deserves to achieve that. And we went on a mission to do that by creating 100 Most Powerful Women, and really being able to mentor women to be able to look like a million, feel like a million, impact millions, and make millions of dollars. Because you shouldn't have to struggle to do what you want to do, and that you can live the life of your dreams. And whatever it is that you're passionate about, the impact you want to make, the causes you want to support, whatever it is that you want to do, that, having a millionaire lifestyle makes that possible, makes it easy to do that. And that, every woman should be able to experience that for her life. So Jackie.
Sharla, I'm telling you, I've got like fighting a tear that's just been welling up in my eye hearing you tell that story. I mean, my God, talk about a blessing and a miracle. And it's one of those things that I thank God for every day, was meeting you and what we have going on. And it truly, as you said, there are no coincidences, and how unbelievably blessed, that I am for all of this. So it also just reminds me of the power of having someone who believes in you. Because what you said to me that day, now I get emotional, and what you said to me when you very kindly jumped on a call with me for an hour or more, when I reached out and said, hey, could you, tell me a little bit more about when you said you're your own show? And I said, would you mind jumping on a call with me? And that was a big step for me too, which I really want women to listen to. Ordinarily, I'd hide in the shadows and be very afraid to reach out to someone like you, who clearly had a successful business. What did I have to offer you at the time? I was still trying to figure out my entrepreneurial journey. I didn't have anything to offer you, but you'd been so kind. And I knew that I had to do something to make this business work. And I was like, who am I going to reach? And I thought, I've got to reach out to her. I just have to fight my fears and make that email or that call. And then when you came back and you said, of course you will. And then you spent almost, more than an hour helping me with what you thought I should do next. The power of having someone who believes in you. And then for me to join your tour, and all of the times that you believed in me and you supported me and you lifted me up, the power of that is so extraordinary. And I think that's a lot of what we do with our clients too, is we believe in them. The power of having another woman who believes in you and who can help you, who knows a little bit more about this than maybe you do right now. That is huge. And so it just, that's what it makes me realize, the power of having an extraordinary woman who believes in you. And I think that that now in turn, we both do that to the women who work with us. And what a privilege that is. And to see them blossom in the face of having someone believe in them, Yeah. Anyway, I forget what the original question was because I got verklempt talking about that.
Oh, yeah, no. And absolutely, Jackie, you've been that person for me. It was definitely as we traveled and got to know each other that it's like, this is somebody who gets it, who knows, the power of when you dream big, when you ask the universe, when you follow that divine guidance, and we'd have such brilliant conversations. And, I thought I was, doing great and had it made in the shade. But, I almost drove off the road one day when you were talking about, kind of next steps with one woman and where things were going. And, I was struggling with some of the US events. And you had made a comment as, you said, as Jay-Z always says, you can't help the poor if you're one of them. And, it was such a powerful moment for me that even as I thought I was, living my big goals and dreams, that in many ways I was still playing small, and really, taught me to really up my game and to be able to unleash what I was capable of in this world. And that, to be fearless in that and, to continue to do that. And so, I think we've been that for each other in different ways. And, it's what we pass on to our clients that we work with, because no woman should do this alone. We don't have all the answers ourselves. Lots of times we're, need to pick somebody's brain, bounce something off, keep us from giving up. So many women always want to throw in the towel, and I always say, if you sign up to work with Jackie and I, we're never going to talk you off the ledge. I'm sorry. We're going to do one of these and show you that you can fly, because every woman can. And so, that's what we do, is build the confidence, build the knowledge in every single woman so that she can confidently be who she was called to be, that she always was meant to be. I always say, you're made of stardust and grace. Own it. Own it. You're meant to be powerful. You're meant to live this extraordinary life. We can choose this extraordinary life, or we can choose struggle. Every single day, it's up to each of us to decide. And we know what that feels like. We've experienced both in our own lives, and we choose, the millionaire life. And that's what we want for every woman in this world, and that you can have it. So I think that wraps everything up for today. So we want to thank you, ladies, for joining us, for learning a little bit more about our millionaire journey. And we'd love to learn more about yours. We do millionaire sessions where we call them millionaire masterminds, to learn more about you, about your journey, your story, what you're wanting. And, if you're interested in working with Jackie and I, we are mentoring 100 women this year to look like a million, feel like a million, impact millions, and make millions. So if you're ready for that in your life, I'm going to post in the comments, the link to our next Millionaire Mastermind, that you can join us to learn more and start stepping into the life that you want to live. Any final words, Jackie?
Yes, Sharla, I love that. And just to remind everybody, it doesn't matter where you are right now. As long as when you hear the word millions, something in you goes, gosh, that would be great. I think that's what I would like. I'd like to look like a million, feel like a million, impact millions, and make millions. So you don't have to be anywhere near there right now. As long as that sort of speaks to you and excites you a little bit, then join us on one of our masterminds, because we know how to get you there. You don't have to. So yeah, and it's been such a pleasure sharing these stories, listening to yours, Sharla, and being with everybody today. So thank you.
Absolutely. Ditto that, Jackie. So thanks everybody for watching. Be sure to join our next episode. If you have something that you want us to talk about, put it in the comments below and we will feature that in an upcoming episode. Everybody have a fantastic day. We'll see you next time on So You Want to Be a Millionaire.
Bye.